My brothers and sisters, the day I touched that uranium sample with Prime Minister Modi watching, the room went dead silent. Not diplomatic silence. Terror silence. The kind of silence that comes when the world order realizes it's dying. The 56 billion for nuclear power plants that will light up all of West Africa. For technology so advanced that only 31 nations in history have mastered it. For the kind of power that transforms beggars into superpowers. This was Africa joining the nuclear club. The moment we stopped asking for electricity and started generating enough to sell. The day we looked at uranium, the same rocks that powered Western reactors for 70 years while our villages stayed dark, and said, never again. When Modi shook my hand, I felt something new. Respect. For the first time, a global power came not to extract from Africa, but to build with Africa. To create something so massive that the West will never again call us developing. 60% of the world's uranium lies beneath African soil. For decades, French companies mined our uranium and shipped it to Europe. Those uranium pellets lit Paris while Ouagadougou remained dark. They powered London while our hospitals ran without electricity. This 56 billion nuclear partnership changes everything. No more uranium exports without value addition. African uranium will power African reactors, generating African electricity sold at African prices. 1 kg of uranium contains more energy than 3 million kg of coal. A single nuclear plant powers millions of homes for decades. This is not energy independence. This is energy dominance. India brings 50 years of nuclear expertise. We bring uranium vision and determination to never depend on others again. Together we create African-owned reactors built with Indian technology operated by African engineers. For 75 years, nuclear power belonged to elite nations only. America, Russia, France, Britain. They formed an atomic club that locked out Africa. They said nuclear technology was too dangerous for us, too complex for African engineers, too expensive for African economies. The truth, they feared atomic-powered Africa. Nuclear power is not just electricity. It's the foundation of industrial civilization. It powers aluminum smelters, steel mills, chemical plants. It's the difference between exporting raw materials and becoming an industrial power. Today, we shatter their monopoly. India extends its hand to lift Africa into the atomic age, not as students but as equals. Complete technology transfer. Indian engineers training African engineers. Nuclear science taught in African universities. The nuclear monopoly that kept Africa dark for 70 years ends today. 20 billion for 4 next-generation reactors, each generating 1,200 megawatt. Together more power than all our current generation combined, with surplus to export across West Africa. 15 billion for nuclear fuel processing. Instead of shipping uranium or abroad, we develop our own fuel cycle, African uranium processed in African facilities powering African reactors. 8 billion for nuclear universities. We will educate African nuclear scientists from across the continent. Knowledge guarded in Western labs will flow freely in African classrooms. 6 billion for safety and waste management. We will exceed international standards, proving African nuclear facilities are world-class. 4 billion for transmission infrastructure. Nuclear power reaches every village through Africa's most modern electrical grid. 2 billion for research facilities, 1 billion for regulatory frameworks. This is not scattered aid. This is systematic investment in atomic sovereignty. In Dori, Amina has lived 60 years of broken electricity promises. Colonial officials promise power. Independence leaders promise development. Aid agencies promise solar panels. All failed. She still cooks over wood and reads by candlelight. Nuclear changes everything. When the first reactor starts, Dori gets 24-hour electricity For the first time ever, not intermittent solar that disappears with clouds, not diesel generators that break monthly. Reliable nuclear electricity flowing for decades. In Gaia, mechanic Sadhu dreams of a modern auto shop but lacks reliable power. Current grid delivers maybe 4 hours daily, making business impossible. Nuclear electricity changes his world. Round, clock power means welding equipment, diagnostic computers, electric tools, even electric vehicle service. His small shop becomes a modern center employing dozens. In Kaya Hospital, doctors operate by flashlight when power fails. Medical equipment breaks from surges and outages. Nuclear base load power transforms this into a modern facility. MRI machines, CT scanners, surgical robots, research labs. The hospital that once referred cases to Europe becomes West Africa's referral center. From Washington to Paris, the phone calls started within hours. Not congratulations. Threats and desperate attempts to derail Africa's nuclear future. French were most hysterical. For decades, they mined African uranium, processed it in France, sold technology only to rich nations. Our India partnership destroys their entire African nuclear strategy. Emergency, Elysee Palace meetings, diplomatic pressure on India, trade threats against us. They even suggested Africans cannot be trusted with nuclear technology. The same racist arguments from colonial times. Americans were subtler but equally desperate. Pentagon officials suddenly discovered proliferation concerns. State Department warned of security risks. They offered alternatives. Solar, wind, gas, anything except nuclear. Their real fear, nuclear-powered Africa changes global power balance forever. We will no longer depend on fuel imports. We will no longer accept second-rate infrastructure. We will demand equal treatment in international affairs. For 60 years, Western companies extracted African uranium and shipped it abroad. Niger's uranium-powered French plants. Namibia's uranium-fueled American reactors. Africa mined atomic fuel that lit the developed world while staying energy poor. This partnership ends that colonial relationship. Complete uranium fuel cycle within Africa. We mine, convert, enrich, fabricate, and burn uranium in our own reactors. Africa contains 60% of global uranium reserves. We sat on atomic treasure while importing expensive fossils and suffering electricity shortages. That irony ends today. Indian fuel technology transfers to African facilities. Uranium mined in Burkina Faso, processed in Burkina Faso, enriched in Burkina Faso, fabricated in Burkina Faso, consumed in Burkina Faso reactors. Within 20 years, an African nuclear fuel consortium, continental cooperation developing continent, wide nuclear capabilities, ending Western nuclear service dependence forever. India commits to training 10,000 African nuclear engineers over 15 years, the largest technology transfer in African history. Nuclear engineering requires advanced physics, material science, complex safety systems, precision manufacturing. These skills create capabilities far beyond nuclear power. Our graduates will understand radiation physics for medical imaging, material science for aerospace industries, advanced manufacturing for electronics. Nuclear education creates African technological sovereignty across all advanced industries. Burkina Faso will host the continent's most advanced technical university. Students from across Africa studying atomic physics in Ouagadougou. Knowledge, once guarded in Western labs, flowing freely in African classrooms. Nuclear capability changes how the world sees African nations. Countries with nuclear technology get greater respect, caution, and consideration. We have no weapons intentions. Exclusive, peaceful development with full international oversight. But technical knowledge for nuclear power represents advanced capability demanding international respect. France can no longer dismiss us as dependent former colonies. America cannot ignore African positions when we master sophisticated technology. China must treat us as equals when we operate world-class nuclear facilities. Nuclear power is peaceful power, but peaceful power is still power. Nations that split atoms for electricity have crossed technological thresholds, changing all international relationships. Nigeria requested consultations for nuclear partnerships. Kenya expressed interest. South Africa seeks reactor expansion cooperation. Our model could replicate continent-wide. African uranium, Indian technology, African electricity, African-trained engineers. Every successful reactor proves African nations can master civilization's most sophisticated technology. Within 20 years, African Nuclear Cooperation Organization, Continental Nuclear Technology Sharing, Joint Scientist Training, Unified International Voice. Uranium that powered Western development for 70 years becomes foundation for African development for the next century. From Casablanca to Cape Town, the peaceful atom lighting African cities powering African industries. When I signed with Modi, I declared Africa refuses permanent technological inferiority. We reject that nuclear power belongs only to other continents. We refuse grateful acceptance of outdated technology scraps. Uranium waited beneath our soil for millions of years until African hands would shape it into African prosperity. Today is that day. 56 billion, not aid, not charity, partnership between equals. India gains uranium supplies. Africa gains atomic sovereignty. Both prosper. Within 10 years, first reactor achieves criticality. African uranium, African facilities, African engineers, African electricity. We cross civilization's threshold. Within 20 years, nuclear industrialization transforms our economy. Aluminum smelters, steel mills, chemical plants, all powered by clean, abundant nuclear electricity from our uranium. Within 30 years, other African nations operate nuclear facilities trained by African engineers, supported by African institutions. Africa's atomic age fully realized. Beyond technical achievements, this represents African refusal of permanent technological inferiority. We are not asking permission to join the nuclear age. We are not begging admission to the atomic club. We are taking our rightful place among nuclear-powered nations as equals. The uranium was always ours. The technology is now ours. The future will be ours. Nuclear-powered Africa rises today. When we rise forever.